Hello again, friends. So, our week of camp went a little bit different than expected, but luckily we live in an age where I can be a 10-hour drive away from you guys and still be part of this camp with you guys. So, super glad that we're still able to make this work out. Super glad that nobody had corona, and glad that we get to take this time to talk about dreaming and to talk about learning to dream again. The title of the talk that Cami and the team wanted me to give is Learning to Dream Again, How to Carry Hope for Peace in the Midst of a Chaotic World. And this is actually a topic that is like super valuable to me. It's something that I hold very close to my heart. So yeah, when I found out that this is what you guys wanted me to talk on, I was really excited. And when I'm thinking through what it means to dream, what it means to carry peace, to carry a vision for peace in the midst of a chaotic world. There's a ton of things that come to mind, and we could actually be talking for hours about this stuff if we wanted to. But what I have in mind for this talk specifically is kind of a bit of a foundation. I think it's important that we like to be able to dream well, to be able to carry a vision for peace in our lives, in our communities, and in the world. We need first to have a vision for that peace in ourselves. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk a little bit about some of the mechanics of what does it look like to dream. How do we learn to dream? How do we learn to hope again when we've been exposed to so much hopelessness? Why that's important, and like what just some of the important reasons behind that, some of the purpose behind that, some of the ways that we can do that, and then just want to share some super encouraging stories of how that plays out in history and in the world and all that different stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. So again, I mentioned we want to talk about foundation, and I think something that's very important for us when it comes to dreaming is the idea of having a solid identity, having a solid understanding of who we're meant to be. I think it's hard to pursue peace without an idea of what that peace looks like. And like I said, I believe dreaming is an important part of that. But in order to dream well and hope well, we first need to have foundation of knowing who we are. We need to have peace with ourselves, and we need to know the truth about who we are. So I want to take some time just taking in and thinking and chewing on some of those truths of who we're meant to be. So here's what I want to do. Wherever you guys are, I think you're at the library cafe right now. I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and I'm just going to speak out some truths about who you are, who you're meant to be, and just as I'm sharing them out, just take them in. This is truth of who you are. So here it goes. Yeah, just simply receive them and let them sink in. You are loved. You are made for love. You are made to love, and you are made to be loved. You are enough. You're not broken. You're not a failure. You're not unworthy. You're created with a purpose. You're created to be a light. You're created to be someone who brings hope. You're created to be a restorer and a peace bringer. You're not defined by your mistakes or the mistakes of your people. You're not defined by what people have said about you, and you're not defined by what people have done to you. You are meant for more. You were created to create. You were created to restore. You were created to have the boldness to dream big dreams and to pursue those dreams in your community. You were created to see families restored, to see generations-long family feuds brought to peace, to see with your eyes wars end and lasting peace established. You were created to innovate. You were created to solve problems that people thought were unsolvable, to bring hope to situations people thought were hopeless, to bring restoration to relationships people thought were unrestorable. You were created to bring peace, hope, and love everywhere you go. You were created to dream big and to see big dreams fulfilled. You can open your eyes. Yeah, like I said, I believe we were all created to dream for things bigger than ourselves and to pursue those dreams. So you need to know you have the freedom to dream. You have the freedom to hope. You have permission. I know a lot of you guys have been through really hopeless and disparaging circumstances. But yeah, I just want you to know you have the freedom to hope. You have the freedom to dream for something better than the world you've seen. So yeah, in order to walk in that, I think we need to first have that truth about who we were created to be, and just a few of those things is some of the important foundations I think that's important for us. Let's get into some of the mechanics of that. So yeah, what do we mean when we talk about dreaming? One of the big pieces, of course, we're not talking about going to sleep and having a dream when you're sleeping, but I think a definition that I think of that's applicable for my heart and applicable for what we're doing here is not so much hayal, like the Turkish word of, having an imagination thing of some, thing that could happen. But for me, it means scheming for peace, plotting for peace, planning for peace, instead of just thinking of, in English we say a pie in the sky, like thinking of, just some utopia that would never happen. For me, dreaming is like a word I use for the planning and scheming process for peace. So what does that look like? I think one important step for us, especially for those of us in the community that have been through awful things, I think one of the important ways that we can scheme for peace, that we can dream and plan and plot for peace, is just start by choosing hope. Not choosing despair, not choosing fear, not choosing revenge, but choosing to approach these problems that we deal with the mentality that a better world is possible. But it's going to be one that we all need to choose, and it's going to be one that we all need to hope for. I think the human brain is an amazing piece of dreaming and planning and creating machinery. Like you all have a seed of creative potential in front of you. I know some of you are, some of you write, some of you do computer programming, some of you are artists, and some of you might not even necessarily recognize what that creative potential you have in front of you is. But the truth is, every one of you is creative in your own way. Every one of you has influence, whether it's an artistic influence or scientific influence or just in your community. You are designed to bring change and to bring to create in the midst of your circumstances. All of our brains are designed to dream and plan and create in that way, and they can do that when they're released to do that. And I think something that's important is that we just make the choice to set our minds free to do that. And the truth is, hope can be scary. The world is a crazy place, and when we have a dream and we have a hope and the darkness of the world comes in and influences that, it can be scary to dream and to hope again. It's really easy to be disappointed with what goes on in the world, and so hoping can be scary in that sense. But I think something that's really important to know is hopelessness is more scary. Hope can be difficult because it's an active choice, it's something we do, but I think it's much more terrifying for us to stay in hopelessness. Hope is just better. And yeah, like I said, as we're going, we need to plot for peace. We need to scheme and plan for peace. There's a quote that I love. It goes, "Violence is often the instrument of those who are impatient, those who lack imagination, and those who cannot wait on justice or freedom or redemption. I think for us, like, plotting for peace, dreaming for peace, means taking the difficult road. If you choose to go this route, it's the harder route. Violence is easier. Planning for violence is easier than planning for peace. There's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. He says, "Those of us who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as the warhawks." Just meaning, like, if you love peace, if that's what you want to go after, it's going to take more organization, it's going to take more dreaming, it's going to take more creativity than those who prefer war, than those who want to, those who want violence, or whatever your other thing is. Obviously, peace is a wide-ranging concept. We're not just talking about the difference between war and peace here, but that is part of what we're talking about. But the truth is, peace takes more effort, but it's also so much more worth it. Then just along the mechanics of how to dream, I think something that's super important is just taking time alone. There's this word that I've loved the last couple of years, solitude. And just the idea of solitude isn't, that you're just, sitting in your house lonely necessarily, but it's taking time to just step back from everything, to step back from like other input, not to be watching YouTube, not to be doing anything else, but just being alone with your thoughts, whether it's going on a walk, leaving your phone at the house, or for me, I'm kind of out in this forested area. I don't have internet access right now. It's just me and my thoughts, the occasional car driving by that I have to cut scene for. Sorry for all those jumps. There's a bit of traffic on this road. But yeah, with solitude, I think an important piece is that it just gives our brains a chance to think, to process, to see, to take the things it's seen over the last little while and process it. And when we choose hope, and when we choose to dream, when we choose to plot for peace, I think something that happens is our brain can, take all the stuff that's been going on in the world and then start to look for solutions in those things, and not just be fed by the outrage of, this person said this and this person did that, which is what we get when we're constantly scrolling through social media or checking the news or whatever the thing is. But it gives us a chance to just to breathe and to get out from the craziness of the world and just process some of the stuff. So for me, when I'm dreaming and when I'm plotting for peace, a major important piece of that is just to get alone and to spend time doing that. So then within that, what does that look like? And again, I don't think dreaming exclusively can happen alone, but I think us getting time alone and getting time to just to breathe and to actively hope is super important for at least us personally in that process. But then it can also happen in community. When you guys are done here, you guys are gonna be kind of doing some of that same stuff, scheming for peace, plotting for peace together, right? So what are some ways that we can do that? Like, what are the actions that need to happen in that? So for me, when I have a situation that I want to dream into, that I want to scheme into, scheme for peace, plot for peace in, there's just a few questions that I bring to the table and that I just spend time chewing through. 5 big ones. Well, no. 2 big ones would be, in this situation, what would peace look like in this situation? What would the good for everyone look like in this situation? In some businesses or like some entrepreneurial programs, they describe this as the brainstorming process. We know the world the way it is right now, but what could it look like? What do we want it to look like? What is a world, or what is the situation? What could the situation look like if it was good for everyone? If there was peace in this situation? If all the hungry people were fed? If all the people who were in poverty had enough enough resources to live off of, right? What does it look like when this situation is good? You know, and just take time chewing through those questions. What does it look like when Syria is at peace and the war is over? What does it look like when there's no longer a drug syndicate and stuff going on in Colombia? What does it look like when there's no longer racism in the world? And just spend time imagining, dreaming what that world looks like. Spend time in that world, right? And I think, when I look at dreamers of the past and the ways that, people have dreamt for change and eventually seen that change happen in the past, there's a few pieces that I see come up over and over again. One is just that they were willing to dream big. They were willing to dream unrealistically. You know, they were willing to dream unreasonably. The things that they dreamed of, the things that they were imagining and saying, hey, this is the world that we can have, they were absurd. You know, a lot of these people were literally mocked. Some of them were assassinated because of how crazy the dreams that they were bringing to the table, how crazy and different from the world that they lived in that they were. There's a quote by a guy named George Bernard Shaw. He says, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." So I think for us, when we're thinking about that, the question is, okay, we want to see change in the world. We want to see the world made better. I want you to know you have the freedom to dream for an unreasonably better world. You have the freedom to dream for an unrealistically better world. Just because you're dreaming of it doesn't mean you're committing to it. But yeah, all progress depends on the unreasonable man, is what that quote said. So be willing to dream big. Be willing to dream unreasonably. Another thing that I think is big is that we take out the words impossible and unrealistic from our vocabulary. There's another quote that I love that says, "Before every major social movement that has changed the world, people said, that is impossible. But after every social movement that has changed the world, people always say, that is inevitable." That's from a book called Beating Guns by a guy named Shane Claiborne. The dreams that you come up with and you're like, no, that's impossible, that doesn't make any sense. There's a version of the future where they do make sense. And I think once we have that vision, once we have that idea of, you know, this world that we want to live in, this world that we want to, that we want to happen, that this dream world, this like plot for peace, once we have that in our minds, and once it's like solid, I think from there we need to start creating in that direction. Use your craft, use whatever your art or your skill is, to work towards that, work towards that world. If you're an artist, create art that shows what that world can look like. If you're a writer, write with that spirit, with that dream behind it. If you're a business person, create businesses that slowly lead your community in the world in the direction that you're wanting to go. Get people on board with your dream, whether that's art, business, writing, programming, whatever your thing is. So a lot of that can sound absurd. A lot of it can sound like, what is this about? When I was thinking about this course and researching it, one thing that came out is we live in a world full of what 200 years ago were impossibilities. We live in a world that has just been full of a history where people have said, no, that's not going to happen, and then it happened. People said, no, this thing couldn't happen, and then it happened. No, there's never going to be a way that people are going to fly. Like, oh, no, but we fly on a regular basis now. No, there's never going to be. So here's a few examples. One thing that for the longest time was called impossible was the idea of a 4-minute mile. So in America, there's the unit of measurement called a mile. It's 1.6 kilometers. And for decades and decades, there was this, there's this, not a tradition, there was this rule, really. There's this thing where people said it's impossible for a person to run a mile, to run 1.6 kilometers in less than 4 minutes. And for many decades, that was true. People would get close. There was, 4 minutes and 5 seconds, 4 minutes and 4-second records. But everyone agreed no person can run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Until someone did. In May of 1954, someone beat that record. They ran a 3 minute and 59 second mile. But what's really crazy about that is that rule held for decades. There was like many years where people said, yeah, you can't, like, it's impossible for someone to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. But in 1954, when someone broke it, within 2 months, another person broke it. And I can't remember offhand, but if I remember it, within the following year, 6 more people broke it. Did people just suddenly actually get faster? Or was it such that people saw that, oh, this dream, this rule that was here was actually not a legitimate rule, and we can go beyond that? So in the, 70 years since 1954, that 4-minute mile has actually been broken 1,400 times now. But it was a rule for decades that, it was impossible that a person can run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Now it's been done hundreds and hundreds of times. Another great example from a slightly different part of the spectrum, with all this pandemic stuff that's been going on. I've been reading a little bit of history of other pandemics throughout history, and one that really stuck out to me is smallpox. If you read up on the history of smallpox, it is a crazy disease. Like, it's killed billions of people throughout history. Even just in the 1900s, they estimate somewhere between 300 million and 500 million people died because of this virus, because of this disease. And it's been with us for thousands of years as humanity. But what's crazy is it doesn't exist anymore. Because of vaccines and because of other stuff, it was eradicated in 1979. Think of, for the 1,000 years of human history where there's millions and millions of people dying from this thing, there was this impossible dream of, like, what if this thing could stop? What if this disease that kills hundreds of millions of people, what if it could stop? That was an absurd dream for thousands of years. But it's a dream that's come true. We live in that world now. If you look in Wikipedia, it says smallpox was, not smallpox is. Smallpox was a virus that killed all these people. There was this dream that people had for generations and generations that this thing could be gone, and it's gone now. Other examples. So the way I did this in my notes was just different ways that these dreams can manifest in time. So there's impossibilities like the 4-minute mile. There's cries of people's hearts like, I wish this thing would stop killing people. Another thing is like poetry. If you look in ancient literature, there's these records of poets and prophets saying things like, talking about swords being turned into plows and spears being turned into pruning hooks, and this idea of tools of death being turned into tools of life, swords being turned into garden implements, these kinds of things. And what's cool is there's organizations that are taking guns and giving them to blacksmiths, and those blacksmiths turn them into shovels and other garden implements. There's another really cool group that I've read about. They're called megatons to megawatts. Yeah, their whole thing is taking nuclear warheads and repurposing them to be nuclear reactors. So take something that would kill tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people and turn it into something that provides power and electricity and other life for tens and hundreds of thousands of people. That came from poetry thousands of years ago, right? But it's something that we're seeing happen today. Another example that I love is from fiction and writing and art. There's a guy named Isaac Asimov. He was a science fiction writer in the 1900s, and he had a quote that goes, "Today's science fiction is tomorrow's science fact." And there's like just dozens and dozens of examples of that being true. Like the radio was something that was imagined as science fiction before it was something we were actually able to have, right? Cars, like think 200 years ago of cars. You had horses, and then you had someone who imagined, being able to move with gasoline and with another power source other than a horse. What's his name? Henry Ford had a thing that said, if I had, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, if I had gone with other people's dreams instead of my own, I would have just given them an upgraded horse. But instead I designed a car and gave them a car, right? Even just think of video calls. I can press a button on my phone and talk face to face with my mom who's in Canada. I can sit here in front of this magic device that lives in my pocket and record a talk for you guys hundreds of kilometers away, right? That was literally science fiction. If you go and watch The Jetsons, it's an old TV show from when I was a kid. It was like that's what was in there. It was science fiction. That technology didn't exist at the time, right? But someone dreamed it up. Someone said, why can't we do this? And hundreds and thousands of people said, that's absurd. Why would we do that? Or not even why would you do that? That's just unrealistic. But then someone said, yeah, no, we're going to do this, right? Another example of that is self-landing rockets. I mentioned Isaac Asimov recently. He had, in his science fiction, he talked about like one of the things he imagined, one of the things that was part of his stories were rockets that were self-landing. So they would go into space, launch their payload into space, and then come back and land vertically. It's a crazy thing. That's not something like reasonable. And yet, within the last decade, SpaceX, Elon Musk, has taken that science fiction, unreasonable picture of the world, and it's now a regular thing that happen. Like those launches happen on a weekly basis now, right? However crazy of a thing you dream for, however absurd, however unrealistic, however unbelievable of a thing you dream for, it's almost guaranteed to be less crazy than the world that we actually live in, according to someone who lived 200 years ago. Like, just think about that. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who lived 200 years ago, and then try and explain the world that we live in now to that person 200 years ago. Like, we live in a crazy world, right? And a lot of that is because people had the absurdity to dream big dreams and to create in the direction of those dreams, right? So I'm completely convinced that the world needs us. The world needs peacemakers to dream big, to dream for peace, to dream for a better world. And the world needs people like us to go after those dreams, to put action to those dreams, and to share those dreams with the world. I said this already, but you've been given a unique spark to light a fire that will bring light and life to those around you. You're the only one with that spark. It's unique. It's just been given to you. Each of us has that. So we can't hold back. Don't hold back. Dream big, dream of a better world, and let's go after it together. Just a couple more quotes and then I'll close. Imagine what would happen if we had as much courage for peace as we have had for war. What if we had as many monuments and holidays designed for the heroes of peace as we've had for the heroes of war? What if we channeled all our incredibly gifted minds to devise ways to de-escalate violence rather than crafting new drones and bombs and guns? What if? And then a final quote. Transformation requires hope, and hope changes the one who hopes. Think about a pregnant mother. She doesn't just passively wait for the baby. She waits actively, She prepares. She gets the crib ready and prepares the room, eats healthy and sleeps well. And so it is with those of us who want to be midwives of a new and better world. I'm so convinced I'm so convinced that who you are and who you are as a community there, and who each of us is meant to be, we're meant to be people who bring hope, who bring life, who bring restoration to the world around us. We're meant to be peacemakers. I think a big piece of that is having a picture for peace, having a vision for peace. There's an ancient passage that goes, without vision, people perish. And for me, this whole dreaming conversation is the foundation of that. What is our vision? What are we going after? And let that thing be absurd. Let it be crazy. But let's hope for something that's worth hoping for, right? Let's go after something that's worth going after. So yeah, jumped around a lot in that conversation. There's a lot of things that, so many different conversations to be had about that, but I want to encourage you guys, keep going. Mobro is going to be doing some stuff about action now. Obviously I didn't talk that much about action in this piece. This was more about just getting a vision for something to go after, but don't be afraid to get a vision for something that's worth getting a vision for, to get hope that's worth hoping after, and then go after it together. Proud of you guys. So glad to know you guys and to have been able to be with you for those couple days. I'm sure I'll make another visit to Mersin sometime soon, but until then, peace. See you guys. Burn. My legs asleep, my legs asleep, my legs asleep. Ow!